like any program, the more you practice, the better you're going to become at it. So I've created an exercise file to help you both with the linear dimension tool and the angle dimension tool. And we're going to have a look at some of the scenarios that we have. So in this first one, it's asking you to measure the angles. So these files are available on Views, both as ArchiCAD 24 and ArchiCAD 25 versions. So download the one that's suitable for you. So it's asking us to measure the angles of these two shapes here. So the inside angle and the outside angle. We're going to click on the angle dimension tool, and notice on the info box you have the inner dimension and the outer dimension. So we're going to focus on the inner dimension first of both of these shapes, and then we're going to switch to the outer dimension. And if you notice at the top here, we have some additional settings as well. So the way the dimensions will pop up, the font that you want to use, perhaps you want to pick a different font color, that's entirely up to you. But we're going to leave it all as default, and we're just going to measure these angles. So I'm going to hover over this first line here, and then I'm going to click, and then I'm going to go to the other line, and then I'm going to click. So notice ArchiCAD has discovered these 3 points. So it's saying point 1, point 2, point 3, and the hammer tool has appeared. So if I click away in space, it's going to identify that based on those 3 points that we identified, based on the fact that we've picked the inner dimension, it's going to calculate that 140 degrees for the inner dimension. So the same thing for this one. We're going to click on that line. We're going to go across, click on this line, and notice it's done 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to click, and it's going to identify that inner dimension as well. So the same thing, or the same method, applies for the outer dimension of that shape. So all you have to do is go up here and just change it to the other option. And then we do the same thing. We make sure 1, 2, and then we click on this side. So now we have 1, 2, 3, and then we click away. So that's going to give us 220. So we do the same thing for this one. So 1, 2, 3, and it's going to give us an angle for the outside. So let's move across to this scenario here, where it's asking us to identify the pitch of the stairs and using the linear dimension tool to identify the geometric length. So what we have here is we're going to use the angle dimension, and we're going to find, first we want to make sure we go back to the inner dimension. So we want to make sure we've got that. So 1, 2, and 3. So 45 degrees, okay. And now we're going to use the dimension tool. Being able to identify the geometric length. And then we can also do the same thing. Perhaps where the stairs actually start. And we can do it for the individual stairs as well, if we wanted to put more detail in. So now moving down to this one here, where we have two shapes where we need to both use the linear dimension tool and the angle dimension tool. So for this one here, we want to identify these 3 points. So we can just click on these 3 points here, and then double click away. So it's already going to distinguish between one to another section, and then from that section to the top. And then moving across here, we'll do the same thing, clicking on the points, and then we'll do the same thing on this side, these 3 points. And now we're going to identify the pitch using that angle there. So we're going to use the angle dimension tool, make sure it's the inner dimension, select that line, select that line. You see these 3 target points have been identified. The hammer tool appears, and we can double click. So that's the angle there that we're given. And then finally, these two shapes, the same method. So we have one, and then the other one. And now we switch it to the outer, and we do the same thing. Okay, done. Okay, so give that a try yourself, practice it, and hopefully you'll learn how to use the dimension tool.